everybody. It's Dave and Darren, your two old bloggers. We're here once again this week to discuss your Minnesota Vikings. That's right. We've been doing this an awfully long time, over 2.5 decades apiece, commenting publicly in public forums, writing, blogging, videoing, the whole works. And we're here to do it all over again, going into week 5 against the Browns. Now, we have 3 themes as usual. First one, after 4 games, what's wrong with the Minnesota Vikings? We're going to find out. Second one, this week in Vikings land, news from your Minnesota Vikings during the week and how it pertains, especially towards this game on Sunday, but also the rest of the season. And then we bring in the free agent, the master of the base, Mr. Drew Bunting, and we're going to preview that game against the Brownies. What do we say to the Brownies? If it's brown, flush it down. Next, on Two Old Bloggers. Let's rock! Vikings First and SKOL presents This Week in Vikings Land with Darren and Dave, your two old bloggers. And we've got a bunch of people already in the house. It's good to see Northfields, Peter, Nick, Forlorn Hope, Delton, Anthony, and anybody else that I missed. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the show. Darren, you were in one of your moods this week, doing up the notes. And so, how are things first in the Great White North?
Just waiting for the first snowfall of the year, Dave. Should be coming any day.
Well, I'm waiting for fall to get back here in St. Louis area. It departed long ago, and it's we're waiting for a cool down finally, but we'll see. I think the hummingbirds finally left. They're heading south.
Oh,
they stayed a couple weeks late, but that was it. Now, since we're talking about what's wrong with your Minnesota Vikings, not that there's anything wrong. Note the sarcasm. We're going to kick it off with theme 1. What's wrong?
Yes, let's get into it, Dave. Last week, if people who watched the show either live or through video, they know that we talked about potentially lowering expectations for the Vikings. And my main reason for that was because of the quarterback play that we've gotten and that we expect to get. That's why I'm lowering my expectations compared to what I had for the team at the beginning of the season. Well, let's go to Dublin last week after we watched the Vikings lose 24-21 to the Steelers in a game that really wasn't as close as the score indicated. Maybe I think I'm going to have to lower my expectations even more. I know it's only 4 games into the season, Dave. That's 23% of a 17-game season. The Vikings are still 2-2, the same record as 8 other teams in the NFL, and there's a bunch that are 1-3, and even a few that haven't won a game yet. So, the season isn't over, but I think that we are in big trouble. This team does not look anywhere close to being able to compete against the big boys in the NFL, with the Bills, the Eagles. I would have put the Rams in that category until Thursday night. And then they don't even look like they could compete against the very good teams, and the big boys. I should include the Lions as well, unfortunately, but even the very good teams, whether you're looking at the 49ers, the Buccaneers, the Packers, maybe even, the Vikings don't look like they're they're that kind of team right now. And so what is wrong with this team that we had such high hopes for and great expectations for coming into the season? Well, okay. Clearly we can't. Injuries have been as Ron Burgundy would say, a pretty big deal, right? Just look at that list up there,
and that's only a partial list, mind you.
Kevin O'Connell talked about it a bit this week, Tuesday, in one of his press conference, where he mentioned that at some point in this season, the Vikings have not had 11 of their 22 starters. 11 of their 22 starters have either missed, one game or multiple games, and a significant amount of time through 4 games in this season. And just all of those, Jordan Addison missed 3 games because of a suspension due to off the field issues. But other than him, all of those other absences have been injury related. Against the Falcons, they were down 8 starters. Against the last week against the Steelers, they were down 7 starters. They lost both of those games, Dave. So injuries, you lose that many starters, and some of these guys are key players. Van Ginkel, your starting quarterback.
Yes.
Cash.
3/5 of the offensive line. Yes.
Mm-hmm. So, those things are tough to overcome. So we cannot pretend that injuries are not a big factor into why the Vikings have not looked very good so far this season and are at 2-2. But I think it's just not the injuries, Dave. The offense has not been performing like we expected. Again, that's, the injuries that play a big part into that, but they just haven't played that, the way that you would expect the offense to play. And there's, just going to rattle a few stats here, but, here's some. Through 4 games, the Vikings offense has only scored 6 points each in 3 of the 4 games. Over 3 quarters, they've only had 6 points in 3 of those 4 games. So the Vikings have been abysmal in converting third downs. Greg Olsen mentioned it about 23 times during the Steelers telecast. I got sick of hearing it. 43% of our drives this year have been 3 and outs. That seems like an awful, awful lot, Dave. And then you had another 5 offensive drives where that were more than 3 plays, but the Vikings turned the ball over. 3 interceptions. You had 1 failed quarterback sneak by J.J. McCarthy on 4th down against Atlanta. You had a fumble recovery, strip sack by Atlanta on McCarthy. Those kind of struggles don't seem like they should be happening or possible when you've got, Justin Jefferson and T.J. Hawkinson to throw the ball to. You've got Jordan Mason to hand the ball off to. You'd think the offense should be playing better than that. And now, again, clearly the offensive line issues and in the injuries that have decimated that unit are play into that. Like you say, when you lose 3/5 of the starting offensive line, it's tough to overcome that. And when that offensive line gets healthy, Dave, will that turn things around for the offense? Maybe, but when is that going to happen? When is Brian O'Neill going to come back from a sprained MCL? Is he going to miss 1 game, 2 games, 3 games? Is Ryan Kelly, when does he come back? Will he come back? We'll get to that a bit later. Will he miss multiple games throughout the season? We don't know. Donovan Jackson, will he be back? Will he just miss the 2 games, or will he miss more than that? By the time the Vikings get healthier on offensive line, will it be too late for them to turn around the season? That is a big question for me. I think along with the offensive line and the injuries there, though, part of the reason that the offense is really struggling is, going back to last week, the quarterback play that we have got, and I think we'll continue to get this season. You look at J.J. McCarthy, Dave, mostly bad through the 8 quarters that he played. I think it was 54% of the offensive drives that the Vikings had while he was quarterback, were 3 and outs. That is a ton of them. The Vikings never cracked in the 2 games. They didn't get more than 254 total yards in offense. That is not very good. Now, so he's really struggled more than I anticipated, more than I think Kevin O'Connell anticipated. The offense has gotten a little bit better despite the criticisms of Carson Wentz through the last 2 games. The Vikings have only had 31% of their offensive drives have been 3 and outs under Wentz. And they've racked up 352 yards and 372 yards in total offense in those 2 games. So it's been a little bit better, but Wentz is Wentz, right? There's no upside there. We have seen some of the limitations with him. His mobility is not what it was when he was a rookie or second and third year player in the league. So he doesn't escape pressure that well. There's some processing issues, even though he's a veteran of 10 years, doesn't see some parts of the field, misses some open receivers, doesn't play well under pressure. A lot of quarterbacks don't, but it really gets magnified with him. So no upside there. That's why he's on his 6th team in 6 NFL seasons. That's why he's bounced around. There might be some games where he'll play really well and help the Vikings offense function efficiently and be a reason why you win. But there's going to be games where I think even for a veteran, he's going to make head scratching mistakes and decisions, and he's going to probably be the reason you lose games. That is who Wentz is. JJ McCarthy, whenever he gets back in and healthy enough to play, he's the guy with the upside. He's the guy with the potential. And I think that he will get better the more he plays. But again, there's going to be ups and downs. By the time he gets it figured out and gets comfortable with the NFL and the speed of the game and reading defenses and seeing and recognizing what defenses are trying to do to him, again, will it be too late in the season for the Vikings to save our season, make the playoffs, those sort of things? I don't know about that so much. So injuries, the injuries has been along the offensive line have been an issue for why the Vikings offense hasn't performed as well as it has. The quarterback play is also an issue, which is partly related to the offensive line. But I think particularly with the quarterback issue, I don't know if things are going to change on the positive side soon enough for us to be the kind of team we hope they're going to be. That's the offensive issues, Dave. I think, but defense is not, they can't wash their hands of what we've seen so far through 4 games. And I think the run defense has been the big culprit, Dave, because they it just hasn't been good enough. You saw that the Falcons rang up 218 rushing yards on us in week 2. The Steelers got 131 last week. It seemed like it was more than that. They were one of the worst rushing teams in the NFL coming into that game. Sure didn't look like it against us. Even the Bears got 119 on us. But I won't criticize the defense too much. Most of that was on Caleb Williams scrambles, which were on pass plays, not run plays. So is that a run defense thing? I don't know about that, but I don't think so. But still 119 yards, not the kind of standard and run defense that we saw last year from this team. And this was a top 5 unit last year. We expected it to be the same or maybe even a little bit better with the moves that they had made on defense. That, the Vikings, we knew the Vikings did make a little bit of a, they made a little bit of shift along the defensive line. When they got rid of Jonathan Bullard and Harrison Phillips, they were giving up something in run defense by bringing in Jonathan Allen and Javon Hargrave in particular. They lost a little bit of beef on the defensive line. They were looking for pass rushing strength and maybe giving up a little bit on the run defense strength. But right now, it's not working too very well, Dave. You're seeing on the run defense side, Dave, I think you're seeing a lot of missed tackles. Sometimes we're not getting penetration, and the running backs go 3 or 4 or 5 yards down the field before we're seeing a Vikings defender near them. Or again, we're missing tackles. We've got them. It looks like we got them bottled up at the line of scrimmage. The running back cuts through, either breaks a tackle or cuts the other way, and they get a 7 or 8 yard game, or better, or worse if you're Vikings stuff. So there's no doubt, I think, that the Blake Cashman injury has really hurt us. Van Ginkel not being able to play most of the three of the 4 games has also hurt a lot. Those guys are pretty good, really good run defenders. What could be the solution here, though, Dave? I think you're, and because Cashman has been out, it's forced Ivan Pace and Eric Wilson to play more than I think we would like them to play, and put them in roles where they don't, I think, thrive. So that's an issue. Now, maybe this gets sorted out when Cashman comes back, whenever that is. Hopefully it's after the bye week, but we know hamstring injuries are very tricky. He could be out longer than that. But maybe it's Cashman. Getting Van Ginkel would help. Do the Vikings do they have to bring up Taki Taimani? I know this doesn't, he's not a big acquisition, but he's a big, wide body, true nose tackle, a run stuffer, can eat up blockers. Do the Vikings need to dress him and play him a bit more on defense to see if they can win on first downs and on running plays a bit more? I don't know. Is there different defensive fronts that Brian Flores, the strategies he can employ as a defensive coordinator to make us more sturdy against the run, putting more guys in the box than maybe he normally has, although I think he does that a lot. Possible. A lot of maybes here, Dave. Maybe. But maybes aren't certainties. What I am certain about, though, is that the Vikings have some issues here. Quarterback play, the injuries, stopping the run defense, and I'm not certain that they are going to be able to fix those things in time to save the season.
I don't disagree. The injury bug has hit us hard. And as I've talked with Drewster, it's like if you're a race car and suddenly you're not operating on all cylinders, say you're a dragster, and you're down a cylinder to start, you're going to be behind the power curve. And we were down players to start, Hitman and Darisaw. And we thought, well, no, we can make up with those. And you can make up with, just having a couple here and there. But when it starts avalanching and you start throwing rods everywhere, it's fail. You get over the point where, there's not enough duct tape in the world to make it fly. It's just, it doesn't work. Now, not blaming everything on injuries. There's a component of coaching that belongs in this conversation too that you missed out on. One, why do the starts of the drive seem so slow and sloppy of, that first drive? Injuries, yeah, you bank some of those, but also play calling, how just the whole attitude seems off this season. Why is the offensive line not playing well? Well, I'm saying Cooper needs fired, but that's just me. There's defense. I think Flores is working miracles for what he has to play with right now. And that's great. Their defense is keeping us in these games. Now, Drew asked, what would our record be if we hadn't had the injuries, if we had the injury luck of last year? I say we'd be probably undefeated, even with J.J. McCarthy going through his bumps and bruises. But at minimum, we would have won at least 3 out of the 4 games, I would think. But we'll see. There's a lot of, bad luck, injury luck. Does that go to not playing them in the preseason, doing the bubble wrap thing? There's all sorts of reasons why we can say the Vikings are only 2-2. But if they lose 2 in a row, it drops your percentage chance of getting to the playoffs. And it's anywhere in the season. They've charted it out. It's funny. You lose 2 games in a row, and your chance of getting in the season drops dramatically. Into the postseason drops dramatically, except for one, like week 6 or something like that is the only one that doesn't really affect it a whole lot, but they all affect it. So can they recover? Can people get healthy by the end of our bye week? Can they get healthy by the time we play the Bears and absolutely maul the Bears again? I would suspect yes, but we will find out.
And that's why tomorrow's game is so key, Dave, because if you can get to 3-2 and then have the bye week, you may have, with all the time that the guys who are injured have missed, you get that, of course, that extra time. Maybe you can get, 2 or 3 or 4 of those guys who are out back in there, and then you're more closer to full strength. But if you're 2-3, like I say, and lost 2 in a row, the hill to make the playoffs gets a lot steeper, harder to climb. And this whole thing, Dave, about just making the playoffs, that isn't what we were. What was not the goal for this team coming into the season. The goal was making the playoffs. Was
minimum expectation.
That was what expected. What we wanted
win
to see,
one.
Well, yeah, we wanted to see and get to the playoffs, like you say, win one playoff game minimum. But what we wanted was much more than that. We always want much more than that. But I think we also expected that this was the year where put up or shut up KOC, get to the playoffs and win a couple of games. So just making the playoffs and then losing, being one and done and getting trashed in the first round by whoever you played, that isn't going to satisfy me or you or any other Viking fan. And the season is going to be a failure if that occurs. But that seems to be what now we're like, let's just make the playoffs. Well, I guess when the games are played every week, Dave, you and I and most Viking fans, we're very happy. Maybe sometimes we're relieved when the Vikings win. And if they make the playoffs, we'll be, I guess, happier than if they don't. But realistically, if you go make the playoffs and we're 9-8 or something like that, or 10-7, but still playing kind of like we have been playing, I don't think we're going to have much confidence that they're going to win a playoff game or even be competitive in a playoff game.
Yeah. Hopefully we get to see.
And that is not what we signed up for this year.
Yeah. JJ McCarthy developed no matter what. And if we do make the playoffs, maybe he turns on that championship gene and we crank out some wins. But who knows? Now on to theme 2. Northfius mentioned one. We will hit it, Northfius.
Yes, penalties.
This week in Vikings land.
Yes, sir. Just going to get to a few snippets of Vikings news or things that I found interesting this week. And first one, it's about injuries again and the offensive line. Sunday morning, first quarter, field goal made, and then we see that Brian O'Neill is on the ground looking in a lot of pain. And I saw that, and I'm thinking, and so are you, Dave, is like, oh, shit. And then after the game, Kevin O'Connell's talking about how it was his MCL, medial collateral ligament, and he's going in for an MRI. We're going to have it looked at. At that point, I'm thinking Brian O'Neill's season might be over. And with all of the injuries that the Vikings have had on the offensive line, that's obviously not great news. But then we find out this week that to get the MRI, it's an MCL sprain, and so O'Neill is week to week at this point. Much better news than a tear, which probably would have meant his season was over, and we'd be, who knows who's going to be playing right tackle the rest of the season. So we dodged a big bullet there, and one of the reasons why is, of course, you want O'Neill on the field. But last year, if you remember, when Christian Darrisaw tore his ACL and MCL against the Rams, the Vikings, David Quisenberry was
too many excuses. We're given reasons why, not excuses. They're still 2-2. But have a great day.
Yeah, no, maybe we'll see you back here next week or not. Dalton's a regular here, so we have faith he'll be back, even if he thinks we've got too many excuses. But getting back to the
21-0. That's how Dalton feels.
But last year, if you remember Darisaw, when he was lost for the season, the Vikings made that trade. They had David Quesenberry as the swing tackle. They had him in to replace Darisaw for a little while, but the Vikings weren't content to have Quesenberry be the left tackle for the rest of the season. So they went out and they traded some future draft picks for Cam Robinson, who ended up doing a pretty good job for a while until he didn't, which unfortunately was when we really needed him to do a good job. But, the Vikings were able to pull that off last year. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah was able to pull off that trade last year for a few reasons. It was a prime opportunity for the Vikings and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah because here Robinson had been a long time established starter in the NFL, but he didn't have a contract going into 2025. He was set to be a free agent. The Jacksonville Jaguars knew they weren't going anywhere in 2024. So they were looking to see if there were some veterans who had some value that they weren't planning on retaining that they could get some draft picks for. Robinson fit that bill. And they had also moved on from Robinson already and replaced him with Walker Little, I think, at that point. So Robinson was available for a few reasons. Normally, teams aren't parting with their starting right tackle because right tackles and tackles in general are very valuable. But this was a prime opportunity. You flip to this year, Dave. If O'Neill had been lost for the season, I don't see any similar situations with any other NFL teams where there would have been a right tackle who is a starter right now, a free agent going into the season, still playing reasonably well, and that a team wanted to move on from that. I don't think there would have been a deal there for Kwesi Adofo-Mensah to make for if O'Neill had been lost for the season. So that's why I say we dodged a real big bullet there. I don't think that if O'Neill had been lost for the season, I don't think that there is going to be a trade that's made. And so you're going to get Justin SKOL or maybe Walter Rouse at right tackle for the rest of the season. And I think we can make a pretty good solid prediction of how that would have went for the Vikings at right tackle if that had been the case. So yes, it hurts that O'Neill is going to miss this game against Cleveland, and we don't know how many more, but it does sound like he's going to come back and he won't be out long term. They didn't put him on the short-term IR, so that's a good sign. But it could have been a lot worse. And if the worst had happened, there would have been very difficult to pull off a trade to bring in somebody who could be at least replacement level at right tackle. We would have been stuck with SKOL or Rouse at right tackle for the entire season, or maybe Blake Brandel too. They could have switched him out there. But again, Brandel is a backup as well, who's struggled when he's had to be a starter at tackle or guard in the NFL.
Yeah. It's a shame. Now, why they didn't put him on short-term IR is getting full. Just to let you know, you can only have, I think, a maximum of 8. I think Tyler said that you can pull off. There's a half dozen on there right now.
Hey, yeah, no, that goes back.
And we're only 4 weeks in.
4 weeks in, yeah. Now, some of those guys will be coming off. Chandler's due to come off after this game, I believe, or Cashman is at least, I think. So, and Cashman and Chandler, and then Jones the following week after that, after the Eagles game, I think he'd be eligible. But anyway, injuries. Sticking with the offensive line, Dave, and injuries. You want to talk about Ryan Kelly? We discussed this a fair bit in the post-game show Sunday morning after the loss to the Steelers. But the Ryan Kelly and the concussions, not going to play tomorrow against the Browns, and this is his second concussion in, I think, 15 days. He also had 3 documented concussions with the Colts during his career, and we don't know. I have not heard if he had any in college or in high school. And if he did, they might not have even been documented or people would have even known back then. So concerning for Kelly because, concussions get easier to sustain the more you have. And for Kelly, the question again becomes, when you've had that many concussions, not only is he going to be, when is he going to be back this season, but is he going to be back at all? Is Kelly looking at his long-term health and saying, hey man, I've had too many concussions, I got to think about hanging it up? And the Vikings brought Kelly in to be an upgrade, a big upgrade over Garrett Bradbury. And it ain't good when you move on from your starting center, replace him with another guy, and then that guy has to retire because of concussion issues. That hasn't happened yet. And Kevin O'Connell was asked about Ryan Kelly's injury this week, and he said that he didn't give any indication that this is going to be a long-term thing. He sounded pretty positive about how Kelly was coming out of concussion protocol. So it doesn't sound like Kelly, we haven't heard any rumblings about Kelly considering retirement. It looks like Kelly's going to try to play. If that's the case, and it looks like it probably is, can the concussions be prevented somehow, Dave, going forward? And this got brought up in our chat last Sunday as well. But looking at, there's a couple of ways you could do it. One is you don't play ever again, which the Vikings don't want. The other is equipment improvements. Right now, we were looking at it, Dave. It looks like Kelly has like a Riddell SpeedFlex model, which is considered a very good helmet. The NFL and the NFLPA consider it one of the top helmet models. It's in the green, one of the top helmet models that can help prevent head injuries for offensive linemen. But obviously it hasn't helped enough because he's had 2 in this season while wearing that helmet. So maybe you should consider going to wearing the model that this guy, Christian Darrisaw, is wearing, which is, I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, the Vicus 02 trench model. Mm-hmm. This is considered, as far as I could tell from the information, this is considered the top of the creme de la creme of helmets. The top build is the top helmet for offensive linemen and defensive linemen to prevent injuries, notably head injuries. Darrisaw, I think he had a concussion his second year or third year.
He had a couple of them. He had back-to-back, and that's when he switched from the Riddell to the Viscous.
Yeah, and he has not had one since.
Mm-mm.
Maybe Kelly should consider wearing the Darrisaw model. I know it looks ugly. And on top of that, put on a gladiator cap along with this to give himself extra protection. Again, that is really ugly, but you're talking about health. You're talking about availability here. I think this is something that Ryan Kelly should consider if he's going to continue playing, and you want to do your best to prevent and mitigate getting another concussion. Then you got to look. I think he's got to look at changing the model of the helmet he's wearing and wearing a guardian cap on top of that helmet. Maybe that solves these concussion issues, which are getting concerning for us, and I'm sure for him and his family.
And I agree. If I was the Vikings, I would march every single O-lineman down to the equipment room and have the helmets ready for those that didn't have them. And they could ask Christian Darrisaw, what do you think? This, that. And if they say it's uncomfortable, they prefer the Riddell because it's more comfortable, then say they got a weird head shape, which is quite possible. They just do a mold of their heads and send it off to Viscous. Leagues do this. The NFL does this. They'll take a mold of their head, and Viscous will make a custom fitting helmet in that style to help, because I think it would help if they all went to, no, we're tired of this. You're all going to get the Viscous, which is the #1 rated helmet, has been for a few years now. It's the goofy, with a bike visor-ish helmet, and go with that. And if they say, well, it's too heavy, well, bullshit. These are offensive linemen that weigh 300 pounds and have necks that are, bigger than most people's trunks. Weight is not an issue. So I'd march them down and say, hey, you all are getting new helmets, whether you like it or not, period.
Mm-hmm. And the more they play with them, the more they'll get used to them, just like every other piece of equipment that you would wear.
Yep. So, but
Doug,
I don't know if it violates the CBA.
I don't know what helmet. Yeah, I don't know what helmet Romeo Dobbs from that team from Wisconsin wears, but we do know he wears a guardian cap, and it has since last season.
Mm-hmm. And they have it, and they have rated the helmets per position. different positions.
Mm-hmm.
And we're, at this case, just talking about linemen.
Yes.
Versus the guys like Romeo Doubs.
We have not seen, I think, Kittle wears like that viscous model, I believe. He's the only, and there might be a few other, I've never seen a wide receiver or a running back wear those type of helmets, but, and Kittle's the only tight end I can think of that wears it other than lineman.
Yeah, but he loves to block as much as he loves to go out on a route and catch a football.
It's true, and I think he recognizes that, so that's why he's switched to that helmet. Because he's going to be like locking horns with guys a lot of times, and he wants to minimize the the rattling up on the old cabeza and protect it as best he can.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, all right, next topic.
Yeah, well, this hasn't been a very positive show so far, Dave. So I wanted to.
I told everybody you were in the mood when you wrote this.
So I wanted to inject some positivity into it, and want to talk maybe some pleasant surprises that we've seen. The Vikings play overall hasn't been a pleasant surprise to me, but there have been a couple of players I think that have been, and one of them has been Jalen Redmond. I don't think a surprise that he's been getting a larger role with this defense and been playing well with it. But I think it has been a surprise to me how well he has played. Last year, we saw him play in limited amount of snaps that he was a guy that you noticed on the field all the time when he did play. But
Aaron, remember, down the street, not across the street.
Redmond was a guy that we didn't know if the strong play he showed last year in limited snaps would translate when he got a bigger role. Well, it has.
Hey, Jay.
His pro football focus grade is 76.4 right now. That's 17th out of 179 defensive linemen that they've graded so far. He's also 11th in interior defensive linemen with that top grade. Out of defensive linemen who have played at least 115 snaps so far. He's playing 58% of the defensive snaps, way up from when he played last year. He's got 9 quarterback pressures so far through 4 games. So I think that Redmond has been one of the better defensive players so far for us. And with the way, particularly in his run defense, has been pretty good too. He's got that ability to get penetration and beat blocks. So I think that, he's played 58% of the defensive snaps so far, Dave. I think particularly with the way the Vikings run defense has gone, he probably needs to play more than that, starting tomorrow and going forward in this season, because we've seen Javon Hargrave's run defense grades haven't been very good throughout the season.
No.
And I think that, this could be one of those little adjustments Brian Flores can make to improve that run defense. Play Jalen Redmond more than you are already.
Right. And we talked about Hargrave not looking good, and neither is Allen for that matter.
Yeah.
And we thought, well, that's because they were just used for pass rushing. They're probably good at the run stopping before the season. At least we were hoping so. No, there was a reason they were just used for pass rushing. And they're 300-pound plus individuals. They shouldn't be that difficult to move. But it's also about lower center of gravity, getting low, shedding blocks, holding up, and they're just not as well equipped for that.
No, but I think their run defense play has been poorer than we were hoping for. But again, potentially, if you give Redmond a few more snaps, particularly on the earlier downs when teams are running on us, that could be one of those little adjustments that helps. So he's been a bright spot. Another guy that's been a bright spot now that he's gotten an opportunity is, I think, running back Xavier Scott. We heard in training camp that this guy was showing and that he was looking impressive when you read the beat writers who cover the Vikings. Again, when you read that, you're like, okay, that's training camp. Nobody's getting tackled. Will it translate into when they actually start tackling and the games get real? In preseason, he looked pretty good. Ended up making the team. Now with Aaron Jones with the hamstring injury, Xavier Scott has become our number 2 running back behind Jordan Mason, and I think he's showing he's acquitted himself well. His rushing stats, nothing to write home about, 10 carries, 31 yards. It's on the receiving end where I think he's been making an impact. And that makes sense because he's a converted wide receiver at the University of Maine who went from wide receiver to a running back. So he's a guy that, he's got a unique skill set with that wide receiver background, Dave. He's just not a running back where you can have him leak out in pass protection and catch a short screen pass. You can line him up wide, and he can probably run every route there is that you'd expect a wide receiver to run, which is not normally what a running back can do. And that's what he did on his touchdown catch against the Steelers Sunday in Dublin, which Matthew Collar pointed out appeared to surprise Jalen Ramsey, who was covering him on that play and is a Pro Bowl, multiple Pro Bowl cornerback who, even at 30, is still considered a good player. So I think Xavier Scott, he's a bit old. He's 26 years old already, Dave. So he's not like a young buck, but I think that he's a guy that could have a role on the Vikings offense, not just this year, but next season and the season after, because of that pass catching ability. And he's a real big guy. Like I didn't notice it as much in preseason, but he's like 6'1" and 220 pounds.
Yeah, he's built like a nice sized running back.
So. Yeah. And he's a guy who's shown that, okay, maybe he's not the big home run threat that Jahmyr Gibbs is, who's not many Jahmyr Gibbs out there, but he's tough to bring down on rushing plays and passing plays. He can break tackles and create explosive plays by breaking those tackles. So I think that the Vikings, which they've done with Redmond and a few other guys, they might not have drafted very well the past few seasons, but they seem to be pretty good at identifying guys on practice squads and who are been cut by other teams and seeing something in them and bringing them to Minnesota, and they produce pretty well.
Yeah, I like it so far. I like like Lone Wolf says, Mason and Scott have turned into a nice pair. Mm-hmm. And it's different than Jones and Mason and stuff like that. And we're still going to get Jones back eventually.
We are, but I think 2026, depending on the kind of year Jones has, you could see him getting released and you go with Mason and Scott. Yeah. As your 1 and 2. So he's been I think a real bright spot. To end things with not positivity, though,
bring it back around to beating ourselves in the head.
One guy who's been an unpleasant surprise for me, and I thought he had a bounce back game against the Bengals. I thought he played pretty well there, but then just about everybody on the Vikings did that game. But Ivan Pace Jr., such a great story in 2023, undrafted guy because of his size, his height, I think mostly, but then he undrafted guy who ends up getting a starting spot on Brian Flores' defense in his first year as defensive coordinator. Had pretty high hopes for him. He had a very good rookie season. Even last year, he had some, I think solid season at times, a bit more up and down. But this year, man, oh man, Pace is really struggling. PFF has him credited with 8 missed tackles so far. That seems like a lot through 4 games. Pass coverage has never been his forte, so he struggled there. His PFF grade is 42.1, which is 117th out of 132 linebackers that they've graded so far. That is not good, folks, if you didn't know it already. And with Cashman going down, Dave, the Vikings needed Ivan Pace Jr. to step up. Well, he stepped down. He seems to be regressing as a player and not getting better. He's the same player. Maybe again, he's regressing compared to his rookie season. This is not good. And the thing about him this year, if he keeps on playing this way, the Vikings have a decision at the end of the year because he's a restricted free agent, which means they have pretty good team control over him. But will they want to re-sign him to a longer extension, knowing, seeing the kind of play they're seeing out of him right now? I don't know. He's got to turn things around. It would help the Vikings defense a lot if he did, but he is really struggling, and it's going to cost him, I think, some dinero this offseason if he keeps on playing this way.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And we can take this positively. Anthony asked in the first theme what the Vikings were for 3 and outs. Where do we rank? I looked it up. We're not the worst. Nor obviously we're not the best. We rank 22nd out of 32 teams for 3 and outs. So,
like I said, not the worst, but when you're in a 32 team league, when you're the bottom third, that's nothing to brag about.
No, but hey, I tried to twist it positive.
Yeah, no, if you wanted to be optimistic, Dave, you could say, particularly if the offensive line gets right health wise, that and Addison is back now. After one game, I thought he looked pretty sharp last week. He did have the one drop, but I think that he will continue to have a positive impact on the offense, no matter who's the quarterback. Those things should allow the offense to perform better on, perform better on third downs and not get in so many third and longs which are difficult to convert for a lot of offenses.
Yep.
Especially ours, because the third down stuff has been abysmal.
Mm-hmm. Well, that ends it for theme 2. What comes after theme 2?
Theme 3, inside the numbers, baby.
And we're going to be talking about the Vikings at the Browns in London. But first, we got to bring in our star free agent.
I don't know about star free agent. I botched a couple games so far this year.
You didn't botch them.
Nothing but excuses.
I want to say, you see that ugly Browns helmet. I want to start off by saying, great. I mean, a lot of good information so far, you guys at this show, especially the stuff on the helmets. I had no idea. The only thing I think of is the viscous 36, 24, 36 trench model. I have used those a couple times in the 80s when I was on tour. When I was on tour with Robin Trower, matter of fact.
Okay.
They do prevent concussions. Let me tell you, they work. The 36, 24, 36 viscous. That's my helmet knowledge. And I also want to say I watched the chat in here. Again, these are the smartest Viking fans out of any podcast out there. And I see some podcasts out there. These fans are knowledgeable. They're passionate. They make good points. And I don't know. This show stands out for the chat people that show up here. They're exceptional. And I wanted to point that out before we get into it today.
They also get up early.
Yes, which we appreciate.
The comments are just fantastic, man. And I understand they're angry a little bit. Before we get into this Browns thing, I'll say this. You guys all remember Dennis Green. If you're in the chat, you got to remember Denny Green. Dennis Green, about 94, 95, was having a rash of injuries like the Vikings are right now. And they asked him about it during one of the press conferences during the week. And he said something that I'll never forget. He said, when you're down players and you're down talent, the first thing to remedy that is to not make dumb plays. Don't beat yourself, Dennis Green used to say. Everything else will come after that. But if you beat yourself and you got a bunch of injuries, you have no shot. You got Byron Murphy with that flag. You got a 3rd and 7. Darisaw flinches. Now it's 3rd and 12. You got Will Fries wandering around like he's in the wilderness of the Israelites on peyote looking for something. What the hell was Will Fries doing? I don't know. But the point is, you got to not beat yourself if you have injuries. You got to play almost a perfect clean game. And Dennis Green was right.
Lucky he didn't get called for concussion.
Rest in peace, Denny. Miss you, boy. Okay, Cleveland Browns, 18th meeting between these two powerhouse squads. Vikings have won 12 of the previous. We all know the records, 2-2. Browns are 1-3. 3.5 favorite for the Viking. I would probably not even bet on that because I don't know the outcome of this one's going to be. But how about that over-under, 36? 36.5? That is extremely low. I told Darren my first bookie ring I ran was in 4th grade in Mr. Wilson's class. And I think since then I've seen 2 games that are around 35 in those amount of years, and I'm old. So really, really low. It probably will be on the under because these two offenses have so much problems. Let's get
What did
into
I
key
tell
one.
you for a score this week?
You said, I can't remember.
Baseball.
I was thinking about the viscous model.
Baseball.
Let's see.
3-2.
Baseball score.
Final score.
That could be. Hopefully we got the 3.
I'm sure we all remember that opening game against Las Vegas a couple of seasons ago. That 3-3.
Another game
Burner.
that Flores won. Flores won us that game. Like the Jacksonville game, 12-9. Brian Flores has won Kevin O'Connell more games than Kevin O'Connell's won for Kevin O'Connell. That's just
if you look at the EPA numbers, yes, that is true.
Go back and look at the 2 seasons. There's a bunch of games that Brian Flores' defense won in those games. But that's what I digress. Let's get to key one, Darren. You got to make that rookie quarterback pay. You got to crush him. You cannot let him breathe. You got to pressure him. I'm sure they have a plan for him. You got to make Kevin Stefanski look like an idiot for changing his quarterback right now.
You got to acknowledge Doc on that one.
These Doc Proto's here?
Yeah, he says, I'm blaming Drew for my early AM beer start.
I've been accused of that plenty of times, Doc. Hello, Doc Proto.
Especially by
Dylan Gabriel. He's not he's not a slouch, Gabriel. 64 games in college, 3 different schools, Darren, 155 touchdowns. I know it's a different animal, but he knows what he's doing out there in terms of quarterback fundamentals and things. You can't let him get in the groove. You can't let him get started. I have a tasty tidbit to start, and I think Dave might have a graphic for it. This is the 41st, Darren, 41st starting quarterback in Cleveland for the Cleveland Browns since they re-entered the league in 1999. 41.
Bad.
Not 50 years ago, 1999, 41. That is abysmal. Must get in Dylan Gabriel's head.
So are some of the names on that quarterback
on that slide. Yeah. I know it's hard for people to see, but there are some bad ones.
What, Tim Couch? You're not a fan?
Charlie Fry.
Remember Charlie Fry?
I do.
Oh, Clipboard Jesus? Because he looked like Jesus. Clipboard Jesus with Seattle. You can't let him hang around this game. It can't be 0-0, 3-3, because that's the kind of game that Cleveland, they want to try to win. Naturally, they're going to try to keep it low. They're going to have Judkins running as much as they can, because that's really their only chance, because they can't move the football past the. But the Vikings are 2 for 23 on 3rd down and long. Got to stay out of 3rd down and long right off the bat. But the untimely penalties, they could surely start by helping themselves. Let's go to, where's my key 2? Key 2. Oh, urgency and a fast start. You guys already mentioned it during your little intro there.
You mean theme 1?
Yeah, theme 1. That was a while ago for me. I'm trying to remember. Cleveland has struggled to get going early in the season. The Browns are averaging only 5 first-half points per game this year. 5. Come on. Vikings have got to start fast and put the pressure on them. Dictate the flow, Darren. We talk about that. Dictate the game, how the game's going. The flow of the game, make them be reactionary to what you're doing. So far in all these games except Cincinnati, KOC's been he's scrambling, trying to react to what the other team's doing. You have to take your game plan to them and make them react and scramble. That's the idea on these games. And hopefully they can get that done, because they didn't get it done against Pittsburgh. They just lollygagged around, and then next thing you know, DK Metcalf's in the end zone. It's 14-3. You can't let the flow of the game start that way. You cannot. And the Browns, their offense, you guys know the numbers. They're terrible. Well, the good news with this game is if you can score 20 or 24 points, you're probably going to win. I mean, because the Browns have a tough time scoring, but they do have a hell of a defense. Mm-hmm. Can't let them get out to a lead by fumbling the ball and having bad penalties. Can't give them any momentum in this game. I think that's how they lost the Pittsburgh game. They let Pittsburgh roll up so much momentum, they were scrambling to try to get back in it. You don't want to chase the score. like in hockey, that starts this week with my boys. That's why I'm representing today. My Sharks, San Jose Sharks, Thursday night against Vegas. I'll be flying to San Jose to sit in on that one. But like hockey, you can't let the other team jump up on you like that. What do we got for key 3? Where's key 3? Can we run it effectively and not have the brick wall syndrome? Darren asked, what the hell is the brick wall syndrome? That's when it's the third quarter, you have 14 freaking rushes for 9 yards, and you're continuing to do it. If it ain't there at halftime, scrap it. There's different ways to work around the run game. You can have a short passing in lieu of the run game or whatever you want to do. But don't keep going to the well on something that's not working. I think the Vikings can get 75 or 80 yards out of their running game. They'll be sitting okay. But you cannot keep running the ball if it's not working. And the Browns are the best in the league at stopping the run. 70 yards a game. 3 weeks ago, they held Derrick Henry, 12 rushes, 23 yards. Then the next week, they held Josh Jacobs from that team of Wisconsin, 30 yards on 16 carries. I've never seen Josh Jacobs get less than a 2-yard average in any game I've ever watched him play. That's what they do to running backs. Now, last week, Gibbs had 91 and a touchdown. But as everybody knows out there watching, and you smart people in the chat, and you smart co-hosts of mine know that we love Mason, but he's no Jahmyr Gibbs. He's not. So
we also don't have the offensive line that the Lions have.
That's a good point. That does factor into it. But if you take the offensive line, the team from Wisconsin with Jacobs and then Derrick Henry with the Ravens, they both got shut down. I mean, 23 yards and 30 yards respectively. Gibbs got 91, which probably means the normal person would get 50. Mm-hmm. So you have to – I hope they can run the football, and I hope they keep it wide.
50, if that.
Get out wide, Darren, Dave. Don't keep clogging it up in the middle. Don't keep clogging it. Because, I went back and watched some tape on Cleveland. They're not the most high-pressure quarterback sacking team. They're not. I mean, they got Garrett over there who does damage. Most of their damage is done up the middle. They got something going on with Malik Collins and Mason Graham, the two interior defensive linemen. And I watched, rewound. They got something they do very interesting. Their stunting, we know what Dave can explain what stunting is if people don't know. They basically switch positions and rush.
Right. They're changing the gaps they're rushing. Yeah.
Right. But how it's normally run is you stunt off the snap. Right off the snap, you stunt. Well, the Vikings used to do it the days of old. They do this, they have that, but they also have this delayed stunt where they the team will snap the ball, and then Collins and Mason Graham will delay for 2 or 3 seconds and then stunt.
They'll take a step towards normal,
right,
and then loop out or
it's
loop
almost
in.
It's almost like they're telling the offensive linemen to get their whatever jobs they think they're supposed to do on that specific play. And then they're throwing a wrench in it by hesitating and then stunting. So the offensive line is in the Vikings offensive line up front, interior wise, this might be a problem.
Might?
Well, you got two guys. I mean, it was a beautiful thing to watch from a defense. If you like defensive football, watching the Browns defensive line work, it's really, really impressive. And the Vikings with no experience up the middle, I don't know what Mason Graham, I don't know what they're going to do, but don't run in there. Do not start running in there because you're not going to get anything. Keep Mason to the outside, keep Scott to the outside, use Scott in the passing game. But basically the brick wall syndrome is don't keep doing it if it's not working. Come on.
Mm-hmm. Now, G-Mac says no matter the O lineman, they should be able to either pass block or run block. If they can't do either, they shouldn't be employed in the NFL. The problem, G-Mac, is that there aren't enough O-linemen that can do that at an NFL level. Period. There's a shortage.
Well, nobody's going to feel sorry for any team with injuries. Your job is to win games. O'Connell has to come up with a way to win this game, and they're going to have to play better in the trenches. I'm not worried about the defense, but I am. I mean, the Browns, they have flaws themselves, but the strongest part of their team is their defensive line. Don't let their defensive line dictate the flow and win the game for them. Don't do it. There's other ways around it. There's other things you can do to slow down what they're doing. But my whole point of making this a key was I've seen Kevin O'Connell at times with Madison and some of those guys in the past. He keeps doing it up the middle, well into the fourth quarter, and it's not working. If it's not working at halftime, that's your time to adjust. Move on, try something else, or you're going to lose. Don't let the Browns' defensive line be a factor. Key 4, penalties and turnovers. Mention this shit every week, guys, and I'm going to keep putting it in my keys. If you can't stop with the mental mistakes of penalties and turnovers is how you lose football games. For college, pro, whatever. If the Sharks were playing football, that's how they'd lose games. Penalties and turnovers.
And stupid ones.
37 penalties, 287 yards. It's killing them. Every week it's killing them, guys. And the bad timing ones, what you mentioned, Murphy and Darisaw, I'm not pointing those out specifically. Well, I am, I guess, but
Jurgens.
If you're down. If guys are hurt, you can't beat yourself. Like we mentioned in my opening with Dennis Green, you can't do it. You got to help yourself. Make the other team earn it. Make them earn it. Don't give them stupid after the personal foul after the play. You got baited into it. You know when that Byron Murphy thing happened? The player that baited him into it went to the sidelines, and Tomlin gave him a high five. I don't know if you guys saw it. The camera was on it. Because that's what you're supposed to do. And Tomlin was very happy with him. And the guy was laughing about it.
Well, that was Ben Skoranek, right? That was a total flop. If you did that in the NHL, they'd kick you out of the league.
They would.
They looked like a soccer move, but the ref just saw some guy arms up and threw the flag initially. You're like, I don't even know but you're like you say, like if you're don't even touch the guy. Play's over. Nothing good can come out of giving him a little shove.
Right. You can't do things like that. That's dumb. One thing I want to talk about the Vikings defense against the Browns. And I noticed this when I was doing my research. I was looking at the rosters. Now get ready for this. Browns. We talk about their wide receiver crew. Come on, guys. We got the Browns wide receiver crew. David Bell out. DeAndre Carter's on IR. Cedric Tillman, IR. Cade McDonald, IR. Jerry Jeudy. I'll give you that. He's a pretty good receiver. He's average.
Not as good as people thought he would be.
Well, we have the best receiver on the planet. So we're always going to rank higher than everybody else. Jerry Jeudy, I'll give you that one. Here you go. Listen to this. This is a big advantage for the Vikings. James Thrash, 2024 fifth-round pick. Career catches, 4 this year. Roasted. Boom. Isaiah Bond. Shaken, not stirred. Boom. Roasted. Malachi Corley. Who? Boom. Roasted. And how about the great Gage Laveridane? Go ahead and check the chat. If anybody has Gage Laveridane on their fantasy team, let me know. I'm thinking no. You can't have Gage Laveridane doing it. Boom, roasted. The Browns have dropped 8 passes this year in 4 games. That's the second worst in the league. Their wide receiver group is bad. That's why you got to stop Judkins, because you want him to pass the ball. Judkins starts running like Gainwell. You're gonna have a problem, like we talked about with the Steelers. You shut their run down. They just happen to have a good plan passing. Arthur Smith called a great game last week against the Vikings with that short passing game. Those little dig routes to the tight end. Steelers are always in 2nd and 3 all day. They were in 2nd and 3, 2nd and 2. That's what you want to be, not 2nd and 14. So they're going to try to win it with Judkins. You take him out, those receivers can't hurt you. They don't have a DK Metcalf, Darren. They don't. So a lot of boom roasted going on there. Everything else I want to throw out. Just a summary. Listen, the Browns' defense is good, but their offense is terrible. In 4 weeks, they've scored, listen closely, folks, 16, 17, 13, and 10. 16, 17, 13, and 10. Honestly, Minnesota's got to win this game. They got to take care of it. How many games, Darren and Dave, how many teams are 1-3 with the number 1 defense in the league? How does that happen? How's that happen? That proves that their offense sucks.
Yes, it does.
They got a rookie quarterback and a bunch of Isaiah Bond receivers. They got a good defensive line, but you can't let their D-line win the game. They got very good linebackers, too, very athletic. That Schlesinger guy from UCLA, that guy's got a little Luke Kuechly going on. That guy's always around the football. It reminds me of Cashman in his early days with Minnesota Gophers. Cashman's a great player. The run game will get better when Cashman's in there. Ivan Pace, watch tape on him, too. The straightforward Ivan Pace up and down the field is great. It's that side to side where he starts killing you, Dave. The side to side. He doesn't do side to side very well. And Pace needs to get better at it, or maybe we could just bring him in on plays we need him to run forward. Maybe that's
what they used to do when Cashman was healthy.
Yes. 2 good defenses. 2 of the best defenses in the league, I think, at least, on paper. But 2 struggling offenses. Something's got to give. But the Vikings' key to this whole thing is to come out the beginning, dictate the pace, get down the field with some creativity, take their defensive line out of it. Don't do, like Dave, what did you say earlier? Slothy and slow and slothy, whatever the term you used. They can't. You
Sluggish,
can't get that.
Whatever.
You can't let them get into that like they did with Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh just got the thing rolling, and it took us 3 quarters to get back into it. And Tomlin making stupid decisions got us back into that game, really. That's about all I got. Oh, I have a little list I made real quick. Throw these names out at you. Connor Lew, Lew from Auburn. Jake Slaughter from Florida. I want to throw that out there. Yes, I am researching centers already for the Vikings. Those are 2 guys that you're going to want to take a look at. I've watched some early tape on them. Or if they want to go the free agent route, you might be watching Cleveland center, Ethan Ponsick. He's a free agent at the end of the year. So if you want to take a gander at him, maybe that's the direction they might go. So our center may be playing across from us for next year. Just a thought. Tyler Linderbaum's also a free agent.
Thor Nystrom listed a few on Purple Daily this week.
Connor Lew is a great player at Auburn. I like fast off the ball, mean streak, great pass protector, but pancake machine, that guy. You have to seriously take a look at him. I don't know about the center. The center is cursed with the Vikings since Matt Burke. Matty Burke was the last guy I remember. I mean, honestly, that's too long in between, Darren. You can't go from Matt Burke to nothing.
Are you telling me that Blake Brandel in his first start isn't going to be a super stud?
Dude. I hope he is. I hope he emerges. I hope he's Mick Tingelhoff and Dwight Stevenson all rolled into one with a little Mike Webster. Let's hope he's all that rolled into one, and we don't need, something good will come out of these injuries. Something good has to happen, but I know everybody's bummed about the injuries, and I know people are sour about 2-2. I am too, but you got to win this game. You got to win this game because after the bye, you got some hairy-ass games coming up that are going to be very, very tough to win, and you cannot go into them 2-3. The Vikings have got to find a way to get this done. How it may be ugly, I don't care, but get the dub. It may be 3-2, like David Stefano says, but get the dub. And thank God for the last international game we got to play over there. I hate these things. Be done with it this Sunday, can fly back and get back on a regular schedule, but the Browns aren't better than the Vikings. The only way they're better is if you make them better by self-implosion. Okay? Now I'm going to go call Robin Trower and see if we can do a mini tour. I want to get back on tour.
Bridge of Sighs.
Yes! Bridge of Sighs. BLT. I was on tour with them for the BLT album. It wasn't really a tour. It was only 3 shows, but let me tell you, they know how to party backstage. Robin Trower, dude. Here we go. I know the positivity is hard to come by, but we got to crush the Browns. We got to win this game, guys. That's all I have to say about that. Do you want trivia or not?
Sure.
Yeah.
Darren's
this playing the Darren's been good with these. Back way back when we played against the Browns and had one of the best finishes in Vikings history. So this is a two-part question. The winning touchdown pass, quarterback, wide receiver. But before that, the people don't talk about the play that set up that 46-yard game-winning touchdown with no time left on the clock. Also, my personal favorite, best ending the Vikings have ever had, more than the Diggs play. I like this game better.
The miracle at the Met.
Yes, there was a hook and ladder play, 39 yards by these two players that set up that last pass from I'm not going to say it. That's you guys have to come up with that. The last play to win the game, the 39-yard hook and ladder, was a brilliant call by Jerry effing Burns. Effing best call I ever effing seen. Burnsy pulled it out of his hat. Bud Grant said, "Go for it, dude." And they successfully pulled off the hook and ladder. Who were the two guys on the hook and ladder? Who were the two guys on the touchdown pass?
Well, Norcius already answered the hook and ladder one. It was Sensor and Teddy Brown. Sensor and flipped it to Teddy Brown.
Norcius, you can't. That guy is like a Viking machine with knowledge. Norcius,
and then we know it was Kramer to Ahmad Rashad for the.
Okay, I guess it wasn't that dramatic of a. I guess it wasn't that big of a trivia build up there.
I got a trivia for you. I got a trivia for you guys.
What's that?
You want to hear it? This is probably a tough one, especially on the Brown side. But last time we played in London against the Browns was 2017, of course. We remember the game. The Vikings won. But what players on the current rosters now were also playing in that game? There's 3 of them. 2 for the Browns, 1 for the Vikings. Go.
Harrison Hitman Smith for the Vikings.
That's 1.
How many Vikings were there?
Just 1. So Dave got it. Harrison Smith. There's 2 from the Brownies that were playing in 2017.
Joe Flacco.
There's 2 people on the Browns that were playing 8 years ago on the Browns?
Yeah.
Oh, this should be easy then. Come on. I'm going to go with I don't think it was Denzel Ward. He might have been after that.
Not Ward.
We got to come up with
Stefanski was with the Vikings.
It's not Delpit. It's not Schlesinger. He just started. It's got to be somebody on the D line. No, not anybody on the D line. Ponsic started with Seattle to draft the center out of LSU, so it's not him.
Are you giving up?
It's got to be the punter.
No.
The kicker.
I was surprised, but it's
give me the Browns people.
David Njoku, the tight end.
Oh,
he's been around that long. Wow,
he's been around that long. That was 9 seasons ago. And Joe Bitonio, the guard. I pronounced his last name right, or wrong, but
great. He's a really good player, solid player.
Yeah, G-Mac got it. Way to go, G-Mac.
Wow, I'm telling you, this chat, you can't sneak anything by them. They're just a bunch of rock stars when it comes to Viking knowledge and Viking history and Viking trivia. I can't even get you guys to answer the trivia. It was already answered in the chat.
Peter says Adam Thielen was too, wasn't he?
How many drinks did I have when I was touring with?
That's right.
With Robin Trower. When I was touring with Robin Trower, how many drinks before each show did I usually have?
10. And then 20 out.
He'd be falling over.
Wow, that's close. That is close. Hell of a job. Thanks for letting me do another preview. I must apologize to everybody. The Falcons game and the Pittsburgh game. I look at the numbers. I crunch the positions of what they're going on, and I do all that. I do put in the work, but it looks like I suck at this. I want to apologize. I don't mean to steer people the wrong way. The Vikings came out and did nothing that they were supposed to do in that Pittsburgh game that I talked about. Nothing.
It's Quasi's fault.
Dictate the pace. It's football. Take the momentum, dictate the pace, use creativity in your play calling, pressure the shit out of their quarterback, tight coverage. It's football's football. You can't just come out and sloth around the field, get 3 and outs the whole first quarter and a half. You can't. So,
do you suggest KOC starts off with a Red Bull?
Red Bull with a little whiskey in it.
Either way, yeah, works for me.
I started off drinking water today and listening to Darren. I quickly went to the whiskey after about 20 minutes of that. But I will tell you this, Darren's always going to be realistic. And if people say he's pessimistic, they're talking out of their ass because he's realistic. He's right about everything he says. And I'd rather have a guy tell me like it is than to blow smoke. We don't want that. If you want that, go watch some of these cupcake interviews with Paul Allen and KOC. You talk about cupcake softball questions. My God. But Darren, you're not pessimistic. You're realistic, and there is a difference.
T-Bass has a bad feeling about the game. T-Bass, you aren't the only one, brother.
That means you're a Viking fan.
All right. Any last words, gentlemen?
I do. Just glad that Drew brought up Quinshon Judkins as a key in this game, because he has really given the Browns some juice in the running game the past 3 games. And he's the kind of guy like what we saw with Gainwell last week. If the Browns can get 4 or 5 yards or more on rushing downs, it's just going to make Dylan Gabriel's job a whole lot easier. And that is not what you want. You want Gabriel facing 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 10, and for us unleashing the beast, which he wasn't able to do last week. The other thing, injuries. We know it's a big deal, right? But let's look what this. I want to point out what the 49ers did on Thursday night, and I hate doing this because I hate the 49ers. Look who they didn't have against a very good Rams team. Their top 4 pass catchers out, starting quarterback out, their top pass rusher out. They found a way to win. They had a great offensive game plan. They executed it, got a little hairy at the end, but they beat a very good Rams team on the road. I know playing in LA isn't really on the road. There was more 49ers fans at the game than there were the Rams game.
And the 49ers own the Rams. But Matt Jones was barely standing by the end of that game.
They found a way, Darren. Yeah. Like you just said, you got to find a way.
And we're playing a Browns team that is not nearly as good as the Rams in London. We've been in the UK for over a week now. Their injuries can't be the only excuse. You can't say it's not going to be a factor, but you got to find a way. And the Vikings didn't find a way last week, and they've got to find a way this week, just like the 49ers did.
Yep.
Great point. It's a great point.
Hey, they got to win the key matchups, and we'll see how that goes. Will Brian Flores' D manage against the Browns offense? Should. Will the Vikings O-line manage against the Browns defensive line? That's a big question, considering we're starting left to right. Christian Darrisaw, Joe Huber. Now I've heard he's got strength. Okay, good. Let's see it in action. Blake Brandel at center, the start of a legend. And we have Will Peyote Fries at right guard, and then Justin SKOL at right tackle.
You might have to go use the Belichick strategy in this game. Belichick would pick a couple guys you got to take out of the game, Darren. And then he said, if somebody else beats me, then somebody else beats me. I'm taking Myles Garrett and I'm taking Quinshon Judkins. Those are the 2 guys. I'm going to say those guys can't beat me. They can't beat me. And I'm going to let somebody else try to beat me, but it won't be those guys.
Now, I'm curious if Garrett's going to switch sides this week. He normally goes against the left offensive tackle.
Garrett's going wherever SKOL is. He's going to try to kill him.
That would be how I'd coach it, but we'll see.
They don't have a specific designated position for Garrett. He flops around a lot, both sides of the line.
But he's usually on the interior. But yes, whether he actually doesn't play that, he does play, but not that much against the right tackle, which is odd.
They did their job against Trey Hendrickson a couple weeks ago. He had 1 tackle the whole game. So if you can do that, that's the kind of isolation you got to get on these superstar players. Garrett ruined a game for you. He will. So
they did. He's that good.
Trey Hendrickson had as many tackles as Ty Felton did. 1. So don't let these superstars beat you.
And don't beat yourself with penalties.
Make Jeremiah Corley beat you or somebody. But yeah, Dave's right. Don't beat yourself with all these badly timed, stupid penalties. Come on, man. Like Herm Edwards says, it's on the coach. After 4 weeks, you got 37 penalties. You're either coaching it or you're allowing it to happen. I don't think he's coaching it, but he's not bringing the hammer down on the people who need to get the hammer. Sometimes you got to drop the hammer. You can't be nice all the time. It's got to stop. They're beating themselves, and you can't beat yourself when you have injuries. Dennis Green, I'm out.
Who talked about execution? Said they were all for it?
John McKay.
Let's hope.
John McKay. I'm all. How do you feel about your team's execution? I'm all for it. Yeah. He also said we can't run the ball, we can't pass the ball, or stop the run or the pass, but we're fine otherwise. That was another John McKay. Johnny McKay.
Hopefully Sunday's game isn't that bad. I want everybody to join me at live at the 2-minute warning, probably a little bit before, as we roll in and watch the last couple minutes together, and then the crew gathers round Darren and Tyler and Jonas. Jonas will be there. Jonas connected right after we went off the air last week from Dublin. He's at the London game too. He's got tickets there as well. He will try to connect. We'll see if he gets on.
Who's Jonas? Who's Jonas now? I don't.
Jonas Stark. He's our contributor from Germany.
Oh, nice.
Avid football player and coach.
You know what? I watched a replay of the show, the 2-minute warning show. I have to disagree with Forno laying it all at Wentz's feet. I don't agree with that. You can let him know that, not that my word counts for anything, but I don't think it was 100% on Wentz. I don't.
No, it wasn't.
And Darren, I think Darren actually disagreed with him, but
I did.
He did.
We're all Viking fans. Being a fan of this team is never boring. So we'll
Nor is it easy.
Nor is it easy. Thank you to everybody in the chat today. I really appreciate their knowledge and their well-being.
All right, folks. What do we say?
SKOL Vikings, baby. Beat the Browns.
Yeah, beat the Browns. Beat the Browns.
If it's brown, flush it down. SKOL Vikings.
Excellent.
Like, subscribe, and ring the bell. And rate us on your favorite podcast aggregator. Darren and Dave, thank you for watching this episode of Two Old Bloggers. We look forward to seeing you on every show on the new Vikings First and SKOL. You can find our podcasts as part of the Fans First Sports Network. Sports takes for the fan, from the fan. SKOL, everybody!